from the way she texts to the way she talks. And I can confidently say that I feel like
fucking Charlie.
Turning Point USA board, the COO, Justin Strife, and my husband's chief of staff, the amazing
Kirk's chief of staff, Mikey McCoy, was identified in the immediate aftermath of Charlie being shot, acting very weird and taking what looks like a phone call within less than a second after the gunshot rang out. He was crossing his arms and he put his phone directly to his ear before Charlie's body had even hit the ground. Turning Point USA came out and issued a statement about what Mikey was doing. And this was done by an individual who was the producer on the Charlie Kirk show, Blake Neff. He explained that he was right next to Mikey when all of this happened. I've gone back through to verify this, and what is also interesting is that right next to Mikey McCoy and Blake Neff is the individual that took down the camera right behind Charlie before the crime scene was closed.
Mikey McCoy, Charlie Kirk's chief of staff, his confidant, his right hand, remained frozen for a fraction of a second too long. His gaze was not on his friend and boss, who had collapsed behind the podium. It was not on the screaming attendees or the advancing security team. His eyes were vacant, locked on some middle distance, as if processing a complex equation while the world exploded around him. Then, with a calm that would later be described as robotic, chilling, and inexplicable, he did something that would become the focal point of a national obsession. He reached into his jacket pocket, retrieved his phone, and placed a call. This single act, captured in a dozen different angles by smartphone cameras and live stream feeds, did not just record a tragedy. It birthed a conspiracy. The death of Charlie Kirk was no longer just a shocking act of political violence. It became a seedbed of doubt, a puzzle where every piece seemed to fit a different, more sinister picture. The official story, a lone gunman, a life tragically cut short, was quickly overshadowed by a more compelling, more human question. In the moment of ultimate crisis, why would a loyal aide make a phone call? The clip, isolated and looped on social media platforms and cable news shows, is a study in dissonance. To one side, the visceral horror of a public assassination. To the other, Mikey McCoy's unnerving stillness. His lips move, uttering words that the chaotic audio fails to capture. The call lasts for 47 seconds. 47 seconds during which his friend lay dying. 47 seconds that would launch a million theories. The initial public reaction was a mixture of grief and confusion. How could someone so close to the victim exhibit such composure? The explanations offered were varied. Some argued it was shock, a well-documented psychological response to trauma that can manifest as detachment and impaired decision-making. Others, particularly those within his immediate circle, claimed it was training, a key staffer's first instinct in a crisis being to alert the necessary networks, to lock down the narrative, to begin the grim machinery of crisis management. But for a growing segment of the public, these explanations felt hollow, a patina of rationality applied to an act that was fundamentally irrational. The internet's forensic army went to work. They zoomed in, enhanced, and slowed down the footage. They analyzed the micro-expressions that flickered across Mikey McCoy's face in the moments before and after the shot. They claimed to see not shock, but calculation. Not grief, but focus. Online forums and social media platforms became the new courtroom of public opinion. A viral post, viewed by millions, posed a simple, devastating question. Who do you call before the victim has even hit the ground? The implication was clear, a whisper that quickly grew into a roar. The call was not a reaction. It was part of the plan. The simmering speculation found its most powerful amplifier in the form of Candace Owens, a fellow conservative commentator and a complex figure within the same political sphere. She did not tread lightly. In a series of monologues posted to her massive online following, she moved from questioning to outright accusation. "Let's stop pretending we don't see what is right in front of our eyes," she stated, her tone direct and unflinching. "We are told to believe that a man, whose entire professional life was dedicated to Charlie Kirk's mission, in the very second that mission was violently extinguished, decided his first priority was to have a chat on his telephone. Does that sound like loyalty? Does that sound like grief? Or does it sound like someone following a script?" Owens demanded transparency. She called for the immediate release of Mikey McCoy's phone records from that day. Who was on that call? She pressed. What was said? Until we have those answers, every statement from Turning Point USA is nothing more than a carefully constructed press release designed to obfuscate the truth. The family of Charlie Kirk, the supporters of this movement, they deserve to know if the man standing closest to him in his final moments was a friend, or something else entirely. Her words were a lit match thrown into a room full of gasoline. The demand to release the phone records began trending globally. Owens's supporters praised her courage, her willingness to ask the hard questions that mainstream media and the organization itself seemed to be avoiding. Her detractors accused her of exploiting a tragedy, of pouring salt into the wounds of a grieving family and organization for her own personal gain and relevance. The debate was no longer about a single action. It was about motive, loyalty, and the very nature of truth in the digital age. In the face of this escalating storm, Turning Point USA did what large organizations do best. It closed ranks. The official statements were models of corporate grief and institutional control. They mourned the loss of their founder, a visionary leader struck down by hatred. They praised the bravery of the security team and the fortitude of the staff on the ground. And they defended Mikey McCoy. A spokesperson for the organization, in a televised press conference, addressed the unfounded and hurtful speculation directly. In moments of extreme crisis, people react in ways that are often misunderstood by those who were not present, the statement read. Mikey McCoy is a dedicated, loyal member of our team who loved Charlie Kirk like a brother. His actions in those chaotic seconds were driven by instinct and training, an immediate need to communicate with our security command and to begin managing a situation that was, by every definition, unmanageable. To suggest anything nefarious is not only false, it is a profound disservice to a man who is grieving a tremendous personal and professional loss. The message was clear. The family of Turning Point USA stood together. Mikey McCoy was one of them, and attacking him was an attack on the entire organization. This unified front was intended to project strength and quell the rumors. For some, it worked. Supporters of the organization rallied behind McCoy, launching countermovements like Stand with Mikey and Innocence Until Proven, accusing the online mob of character assassination based on edited video clips and a fundamental misunderstanding of high-pressure situations. But for the skeptics, the robust defense only deepened the mystery. It felt too polished, too rehearsed. Why was the organization expending so much capital to protect one staffer's reputation unless there was something more to protect? The very force of their defense became, for many, an indicator of guilt. Perhaps the most perplexing development in the days following the tragedy was the public appearance of Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica. Pale and visibly shaken, she stood before cameras at a memorial service, her voice trembling but clear. She spoke of her husband's legacy, his passion, his love for his country. And then, she did something that sent a fresh shockwave through the online community. She specifically thanked Mikey McCoy. In these dark days, she said, her eyes glistening with tears, the strength and support of Mikey have been a rock for me. He loved Charlie, and he is working tirelessly to ensure that Charlie's vision endures. I am grateful for his loyalty and his friendship. To those who believed in Mikey's innocence, this was the ultimate vindication. If the grieving widow, the person closest to the victim, saw no reason for suspicion, then who was the public to question his actions? Her words were portrayed as a powerful rebuke to the conspiracy theorists. But the internet's detectives dissected this moment with the same intensity they applied to the shooting footage. They noted the language, the timing, the delivery. Why would a woman who had just lost her husband feel the need to publicly absolve an aide? Shouldn't her focus be entirely on her own grief, her family? The closeness she implied felt, to some, strategically deployed. A viral post on a popular forum theorized, this wasn't a thank you. This was a coordinated message. She's being used to legitimize him, or she's part of it herself. The theory of an unusually close relationship between Erica and Mikey, once a fringe whisper, began to gain traction, adding a layer of sordid tabloid speculation to the political mystery. While Erica Kirk spoke publicly, Another silence grew increasingly deafening, that of Charlie Kirk's parents. They did not appear at press conferences. They did not grant interviews. They issued a single, brief statement through a family attorney expressing their profound grief and requesting privacy. In the toxic ecosystem of online speculation, this vacuum was filled with suspicion. Why were they so distant? Were they being kept away? Were they prevented from speaking? Or did their silence speak volumes, a quiet, dignified refusal to participate in a narrative they themselves may have doubted? Rumors, completely unverified and ethically precarious, began to circulate on the darker corners of the web. Anonymous sources, claiming to be close to the family, suggested that Charlie's parents were furious with Mikey McCoy and the handling of the event's aftermath, and that they were being managed by the Turning Point USA apparatus. There was no evidence to support these claims, but they persisted because they fit the emerging narrative of a cover-up. The absence of the grieving parents became a presence in itself, a shadowy indicator that something within the inner circle was deeply amiss. The court of public opinion is now a permanent, global digital coliseum, and the case of Mikey McCoy was its latest grand spectacle. Social media platforms became a battlefield of dueling narratives and fragmented evidence. Users created side-by-side video comparisons, slow-motion edits, and audio enhancements, each purporting to offer the definitive interpretation of those fateful 47 seconds. One viral clip, with thousands of retweets, focused exclusively on Mikey's eyes. "Look at the lack of dilation," the caption read. "This is not the face of shock. This is the face of focus." Another user, claiming expertise in behavioral analysis, wrote a long thread breaking down McCoy's body language, concluding that his posture indicated anticipation, not reaction. The comment sections became a churning ocean of human emotion and ideological warfare. "He's a crisis manager. That's his job. What don't you people understand?" wrote one defender. Another responded, "His job was to protect Charlie, not to call his handler the second the deed was done. Wake up." The theories grew more elaborate. Some suggested the phone call was a signal to the assassin, confirming the target was eliminated. Others postulated it was a call to his own legal team, initiating a prearranged cover-up. A fringe group even theorized that Charlie Kirk was not dead at all, that the entire event was an elaborate hoax to allow him to disappear, and Mikey's call was the all-clear signal in that bizarre theater. Every detail was scrutinized. A photograph of Mikey and Erica Kirk speaking in a corner days after the event was analyzed for perceived intimacy. The timing of Turning Point USA's first fundraising email after the tragedy was cited as evidence of cold-hearted opportunism. The public was no longer consuming a story. It was actively writing it, layer by layer, with each new post, comment, and shared video. Amid the noise, a pattern emerged, a fundamental clash between two irreconcilable worldviews. One side saw a dedicated public servant being crucified by an online mob for not performing grief correctly. The other saw a web of power, manipulation, and a truth that was being systematically concealed by a powerful institution and its allies. There was no middle ground. You either saw a grieving aide or a calculating conspirator. There was no in-between. Just when the story seemed to be settling into a stalemate, accusations versus denials, a new piece of evidence surfaced, sending the investigation spiraling in a new direction. It was a leak, of course. An unverified, low-quality audio file, allegedly from a body-worn microphone of a security officer stationed near the stage. The audio is muffled, filled with the same chaotic noise of the initial footage. But in the seconds following the gunshot, a voice can be heard, barely a whisper under the screams. A voice that analysis suggested, though could not confirm, belonged to Mikey McCoy. The words are fragmented, but to millions of listeners, they are unmistakable. Two words, spoken into the phone before any official announcement had been made. "It's done." If authentic, this audio is catastrophic. It transforms the phone call from a questionable act of crisis management into something far more sinister. "It's done" does not sound like a panicked report of an active shooter. It sounds like a confirmation, a completion. It implies prior knowledge. It implies intent. Turning Point USA immediately issued a statement denouncing the audio as a deepfake, a malicious fabrication designed to torment a grieving man and exploit a tragedy. They promised to pursue legal action against those responsible for its creation and distribution. Digital forensics experts were divided. Some claimed the audio showed signs of manipulation, while others argued it was consistent with the acoustic environment of the venue. The leak changed everything. It provided a narrative for the skeptics, a script for those 47 seconds. The question was no longer just why did he call, but what did he know, and when did he know it? The existence of the audio leak raises even more disturbing questions. Where did it come from? Was it leaked by a whistleblower within the security team, someone who felt the truth was being suppressed? Or was it manufactured and planted by a bad actor seeking to destabilize the organization? The leak itself became a central part of the mystery, a shadowy maneuver in an information war. In the wake of the audio leak, the focus intensifies on the relationships between all the key players. The public scrutinizes every past photograph of Mikey McCoy with Charlie Kirk, searching for a hidden tension behind the public smiles. Old interviews are rewatched, analyzing comments about loyalty and trust. The narrative of Erica Kirk's defense is re-examined under a harsher light. Is her support a genuine reflection of her belief in his innocence? Or is it the action of someone who is either manipulated or complicit? The theories now branch into complex, overlapping possibilities. Was Mikey McCoy a lone actor with a hidden motive? Was he part of a larger faction within Turning Point USA that wanted Charlie Kirk removed? Was this the result of an external compromise? The simple story of an assassin's bullet is gone, replaced by a labyrinth of potential betrayals and concealed agendas. The official investigation, conducted by law enforcement, continues its methodical, silent work. They have the phone records. They have the witness statements. They have the forensic evidence from the scene. But their silence is a wall. The public is left with only the evidence it can scavenge from the internet and the growing, unsettling conviction that the full story has not been told. The emotional toll is immense. Mikey McCoy is living in a state of perpetual scrutiny, his every move watched, his past picked apart. Erica Kirk is mourning in the spotlight, her every expression analyzed for its authenticity. The staff of Turning Point USA are trying to steward a legacy while battling a persistent cloud of suspicion. And Charlie Kirk's parents remain in their silent, private grief, a silence that screams louder than any tweet or press release. We are left at a precipice, staring into the unknown. The initial tragedy has been consumed by a second, slower-moving disaster: the erosion of trust. Trust in institutions, trust in public figures, trust in the very notion that we can see an event and understand what truly happened. The 47-second phone call is more than a moment in time. It is a rift. On one side, the official story of a tragedy met with imperfect but explainable human reactions. On the other, a shadow narrative of conspiracy and concealed truth. The evidence is circumstantial, the motives are unclear, and the key questions remain locked behind a wall of official statements, legal maneuvering, and the impenetrable silence of those who know the whole story. The world watched a man die. Then it watched another man make a phone call. In the space between those two events, a mystery was born. A mystery that asks us who we trust, what we believe, and how we find the truth when every piece of evidence points in two different directions at once. The investigation is far from over. New information is undoubtedly waiting to be uncovered. Witnesses may yet come forward. Technology may provide new insights. The full, unedited truth of what happened on that stage, and in the seconds that followed, remains hidden. What is the real story behind that phone call? What is being concealed from the public, and by whom? The search for answers continues. The story is far from over.